With Avowed preparing to land into the gaming space, the big question most people are asking is, will Avowed be another Xbox flop, or will it land as a sleeper RPG hit? With the view embargo dropping, many gaming outlets have mixed feelings about Avowed. Some loved it, calling the next Fallout New Vegas, while others think it will go straight into the bargain bin. As always, it's up to the crew to give you the answers on what we liked, what we hated, and whether you should buy this now, later, or not at all. Let's jump into it. So let's start off with our good. And I gotta say that when I looked at Avowed, and even when they first gave that reveal trailer, and there's a lot of hype behind everyone saying, well, is this gonna be the next Oblivion? Is this gonna be kind of that return to the Obsidian ways of New Vegas and things along those lines? And granted, even if Avowed did not match the older classical games in which everyone wants to see, the gameplay of Avowed really did surprise me. I think when we first saw the trailers, it was very kind of janky. It didn't seem like it was going to really be really exciting to play or really just get involved with. So when I got to actually jump into Avowed and got into some fights between a crew of people, and sometimes boss battles did get pretty intense. And there are times where I mean, difficulty does range. I think that was going to be one of my later discussions on difficulty and how it drastically shifts from one area to another. But I think the overall game-to-game feel of Avowed is actually pretty good. And I think that the various weapons you can have with 12 different weapon types, with single-handed weapons like pistols or wands, to one-handed melee weapons like maces, spears, and swords, to then going to a two-handed weapons with like double-handed axes and swords and bows and everything along those lines, we're all pretty damn fun to play as. And I think probably the best of all of them is actually the spell casting. I think a lot of people were actually like kind of skeptical about how this is going to feel in the game, and you know, especially with all these different types of games that do these ranged attacks, how is it going to be from spell to spell? If there are going to be any sort of variances in the types of spells that you can use in the grimoires, in my opinion, are fantastic. I usually don't play as a kind of a ranged type of character of any kind. I usually like to be up in the crap, but I've found myself using grimoires more often and kind of making myself kind of a hybrid type of character with having a strong blade and grimoire, and I'm using my spells while attacking directly. Yeah, the grimoire abilities are so nice. Oh, that guy's dead. He just knocked them the hell out. He should be burning heavily. Charge punch. Oh, come on now. Nice kills. Nice kills. And I think what's cool about this is that you find different grimoires to then give different spells, and then you can upgrade those spells to increase its damage or potency or recharge time. And then on top of that, even the weapons have sort of a magical element to them. Like, I have one of my best swords I've found so far was a fire blade that I use for literally all my fights. Like, I think that the ranges of what you can do in this game is pretty vast when it comes to the types of combat. Now, granted, types of weapons are not like too crazy different, like when it comes to slicing, like and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to like the ways in which you can become a hybrid character with, oh, I'm gonna be a pistol sword character, or I want to be just a ranged rifle character, or a spellcaster with a gun in my hand. Like, you can kind of change it up really however you want, and the fact you can have two different builds or two different loadouts, I think, is great for that. So it causes me to really start to think about what type of character do I want Harry Knuckler to be in this world of Avowed. Do I want him to be more of a knuckle brawler, or do I want him to be more of a spellcaster? And I feel like that's one of the Avowed's best traits. It's gameplay, in my opinion. But Frank, what do you think is your good here?
Yeah, I'm combating right off that. I'm talking about the actual combat. I agree with everything you've kind of said there. You know, I love that you can also, you know, adding to your point, you can have a couple, you can have two presets. So you can have one set and then it's a quick change to your other one by pressing a single button. You can go to another kind of build. So if for me personally, I had swords and pistols on one build, and then just a quick button, and I go into my mage mode where I have my wand and grimoire. And, you know, that was a lot of fun, and you feel powerful at times. I also like the ability that you can, you know, move pretty quickly. And I'm playing another game currently coming out with the with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I found myself actually enjoying the Avowed combat more than that game. Right. So to me, I think when I first saw it, anyone who's followed the channel, I really thought Avowed looked kind of like a Dead Man Walking. Now they've had a couple delays to fix a lot of things, so the combat was my biggest concern, and I was pleasantly surprised. 22 spells. You mentioned all the different aspects and combinations that you can do. Yes, weapon to weapon, there aren't huge difference besides some of them being just more powerful or having, a slight difference to them. But I also like how some of them have like enchantments on their swords as well. So there's some cool combat stuff, makes you feel powerful. You can play in multiple different ways. So that to me is one of the big things. And exploration, Mars, that's another thing that I think is so important. I really like in these fantasy worlds to see the world that they build. We'll go into things we don't like, but it's not a huge, robust RPG elements this game provides, but it does entice you to go look for some treasures, pick up some bounties, find some of these side quests, and do them. And they were pretty enjoyable doing some of this side stuff. So exploration and combat to me is a plus for Avowed.
Yeah, I feel like I enjoyed the movements of this game way more than I thought I would. I mean, I will say, playing third person is definitely not as good as playing in first person. I think that was one of the things that, cool that you can create that variance, right, in how you want to go about it. But I feel like first person just immerses you in the world more. It actually makes it so much better when dodging and attacking. Like, you feel more into it. Like, when you third person, you really don't really get to see all the spell casting and all that stuff that's really cool that comes with Avowed. And and I feel like maybe just one last thing to tie in is I think the ability now for Xbox to realize that they can now put in performance and quality modes into the games. And granted, we'll talk more about the quality of it, overall quality of it, and probably in the next section. But I think the fact that we can actually say, hey, Xbox has a performance mode, or it has a quality or a balance mode. If you're playing on 120 hertz, giving players options. Yeah, give you an option to not have to stick with one and hope that it's better than what the standard is. And especially when you think about games in the past like Starfield that released with 30 FPS, or Redfall that just released like garbage. At least you're giving people the ability to ramp up the FPS rate. Like, yes, you know what? Maybe the Xbox Series S can't get there. That's fine if you have an X, which gives people an incentive to get the better console, right? That's kind of the point, right? So I think that's obviously a good thing for me. But with the good, we have to then talk about the bad. And when it comes to the bad, I think the biggest problem for me, and I played a lot of RPGs in my life, right? And I've experienced a lot of these long, drawn-out stories. And sometimes, yes, it is tiresome. But overall, when the stories are really good, you get tied into the characters and you really start to just enjoy the conversations that you get to have. And I played long-ass games like Persona 5 Royal that probably hits around 70 hours, 80 hours if you're really playing the game. Witcher 3 really can go the distance, right? With a long amount of hours to play, like at least 50. And many others that I played, the long open world story games that are always minimum like 50 hours. But then you get to Avowed. And I'm not saying the Avowed is like the longest games ever beat, because it's roughly around 30, 40 hours from what I've seen, right? And the problem with Avowed, and this is one of the biggest problems I had, was the dialogue trees and the dialogue discussions. I think the trees themselves aren't the worst, because it does give the person various different ways in which you can conversate between you and somebody else. And they are not like the same thing either. Like, they are giving you variances of what you could be saying. And it doesn't give like the character a voice for you. Because I've seen sometimes with Dragon Age Valheim, Veilguard, they give you an option and it completely says something different from what it actually gives the option for. So at least they don't screw up that bad. But the problem I do have is that the conversations last 20 minutes more than what they should be.
Their souls.
I mean,
sonorous quality.
The downside so far is that there's a whole lot of talking. Can I put a muffle over the voice? I don't want to talk. I don't care about Kai's soul. It says, can you tell my friend Kai about his soul? What's going on with him? I'm good. I don't need any more. See ya. Goodbye. That's all I need. Can you stop talking? And it draws the game out. It makes me feel like, well, if these conversations weren't so long, the game probably would be finished in like 15, 20 hours, not 30, 40. It gets me tired. I get exhausted at some points where I'm just sitting there talking to somebody that honestly doesn't matter. Like, Yes, there are times I have these brain blasts where I have to like I have a moment like I'm That's So Raven, just seeing into the future or something like that, and I have to stop and talk to the voices in my head like I'm some psychopath. And sure, some of those conversations can be important because they're the main kind of characters in the background. But when I'm talking to some random chick about she's a soothsayer and she's speaking for 30 minutes about random things about energies and like my aura and stuff like that, I honestly just want to slam my head against the wall. And there are several times in live streams that I was playing the game and I'm just sitting there just waiting. Yes, I'm clicking options, waiting for this conversation to end so I can get back to the best part, which is the gameplay. Like that's the whole point. If the game's best aspect is playing the game and just going to combat, don't take me out of that for so long. Like, yes, have conversations, develop the story, but just let me go. Let me get to the next part, please. Like that's part of the problem, is that these dialogues are just so damn long. But Frank, what is one of your bad here?
No, I 100% agree with you. The story and dialogue is definitely a step down. And, you know, you kind of reiterated my biggest issues with it. They just keep on going and they don't stop talking. And a lot of the stuff just feels so random. And it feels like it goes in so many different directions. And we don't want to spoil things. So we'll leave it there. But the story is a big downer to me. The companions. Now, this is not as big of a downer as the story and dialogue. You get 4 companions in this game, and I mentioned that, you know, the RPG elements in this game are not super robust. You have, you know, your tree, which I think is pretty solid, gives you some variability on the different, you know, things you can upgrade, the different abilities you can get. But then you get to your companions, and you have a party system in this game. You have a couple people can join along in your adventure. You only get 4 of them, and their tree is really watered down. I mean, it's a straight one line of abilities. There's not a lot you can do with them. And I wish that there was more in depth there, you know, and, you know, we mentioned some of the things that I thought were really cool with some of the decisions that you can make in the main story. And we love that RPGs that do that, like decisions that you make, actions you take affect the game. And there are 12 total in this one, 6 major ones that affect the world and ending. But, you know, when you look at kind of the robustness across the RPG world of these different elements, like when you're doing those dialogue trees and the companion stuff, you don't have a reputation system, you know, and Obsidian worked on Fallout New Vegas. There was a morale system in there, right? You don't really have that in Avowed. So it definitely feels like the RPG stuff, the companion stuff, the NPC interaction stuff has been watered down some. And that to me, although it's not a terrible system that they have right now, if you even look at Obsidian's past, it doesn't really meet the same standard that they have set in the past for them.
Yeah, and I feel like that was something that I was really worried about with this game, about their whole decision making. And I feel like the good thing about it was that I did see at times that there were some drastic things that did change. So your man received the same fate by ours. Actions have consequences, especially those of your standing. Remember this next time you choose violence over peace. Who'd you kill? Oh no! They killed my guy! But
major changes.
Yeah, there was changes that did occur, but at the same time, it pales in comparison to some others. Like, I mean, obviously, like, yes, if you're comparing this to the best of the best RPGs out there, like The Witcher 3, it's not going to really amount to what that game did, right? It changes the entire game.
Their own history, Obsidian's own history.
Yeah, and they've done it in the past, and it kind of tells me that, well, they had issues with, you know, the development of this game or whatever it may be. That's really one of the big things, and I feel like the story honestly could have been better. I mean, granted, I've played through a lot of the game, and I'm still going through a good chunk of it, but it just feels like it's weird because it's like a mixture between they want you to read a lot of the side lore while not really doing a great enough job of really explaining what's going on, right? Yes, the basic story is pretty simple, but I will say that there's a lot of conversations that they do have that I'm also kind of like, dude, you're not really explaining what's going on much, so you're name dropping a lot of these people, and it really doesn't help me understand what the hell's happening. And it kind of makes it where, yes, they might be telling a really in-depth story, but I really don't know what's going on, so it's hard for me to really grasp that. It's almost, I'm not saying you have to freaking draw it out for me like I'm a caveman or something, but at the same time, you know, I've played my fair share of story games. Like, you kind of have to, you should do a better job of at least going with these stories. And I feel like seeing how they kind of do these different areas, I do like the fact that they have these different small stories within these areas, which is good. But I do want to see kind of a more coherent, just kind of coherent
More
play.
enticing.
Like, yeah, more enticing. Yeah.
Performance, before, again, really love that they give options. Console players should have those options, and I don't want to dissuade them from going forward. Performance mode definitely needs work. You can see, when you're on performance mode, relative balance was pretty solid. Fidelity was obviously solid. Performance mode was definitely the one where you can noticeably see when you're moving that you have a lot of rendering issues with the game. So just want to make that point as well.
So let's move on to our Galactic Grade. And when you look at the overarching, I guess, the scores of Avowed right now, they're hitting around that 78 to 80 range on both OpenCritic and Metacritic. And that's not a bad score, right? When I think about the overall score of how games are ranked nowadays, granted, everyone's got to be a 9 or above, or it's trash according to the majority of the gaming audience. But when I look at Avowed, I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with how the game played and kind of the various different ways that you can go about doing so. I think that the story at times had gotten me kind of laughing because whether one, the dialogue was way too long, and some of the different kind of cringy dialogue did make me laugh because it reminded me of a current age of Marvel movies that are happening right now. And the combat to combat movements and kind of just the general gameplay did get me excited to want me just to keep going, because I felt like the different missions with the bounties and the smaller missions are all kind of interesting to the most part. I feel like the biggest problem I had with it was that its main missions kind of felt like they needed to explain a little bit more for me to really get engulfed with this. I felt like, yes, the basic idea of you trying to stop this plague from spreading to more areas is pretty basic, and I like that your character is your build whatever you want, but at the same time, it's like there's so much other stuff that they're talking about that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So when I look at my overall grade, I'm probably going to give this a 7.8. I think that it hits right around that range between a acceptable kind of title in this sphere of all these RPGs and a really good one. I think there are some things that are kind of ranging in what could improve with how this game feels, and a lot of it has to do with the performance and kind of the rendering. I feel like, yes, the balance of what on an Xbox Series X that I play on hits around 40 FPS with pretty good quality of visuals, but you really want to see games nowadays try to hit around that 60 FPS, especially when you have an option to do so. And there's a lot of those issues with rendering and little things are there. But when it comes to this buy now, play now, because it's a Game Pass, it launches on Game Pass for all those subscribers, but you can also buy it for $70, right? And my only thing is, when it comes to paying $70, I feel like I wouldn't pay $70 for this game. I feel like this is a good $60, maybe even less than that, just because I feel like the story could use some work. The gameplay is fun to play, but if you're playing this on Game Pass, I would highly recommend. I know for us, we have Game Pass and we have the ability to buy in earlier, which is actually worth it in my opinion. I don't know if I would pay $70 outright for this game. I think Game Pass is a great option that if you are a subscriber, I would play it now. I feel like it's a enjoyable enough game to really get a lot of time in and actually feel like you're really doing something that is actually taking your time. Because I know, Frank, and I'll let you jump into this part next, because you already played a game, Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance. That's very similar to this game, right? So that could be even a way for you to even compare it. So Frank, what do you think is your Galactic Grade, and should they buy this now or play it now, later, or not at all?
Yeah, I'm in a similar area with you. I'm at a 7.5, and I'm not at a buy now, I'm at a buy later. And the big part is that $70, like you mentioned. But if you're on Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass, I don't believe this is offered on the standard for the console, but if you're on Ultimate or you're on PC Game Pass, I do think you should play it. I agree with you on both ends there. And, kind of you just brought up that comparison between Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Avowed. And what I will say to the audience is this: if you're looking for a hugely robust RPG game where there's, a ton of, RPG elements, diverse RPG elements, then this Avowed might fall a little short with you. Because again, I mentioned, even when on previous Obsidian games where you have a morale where you have, again, a ton of decisions that you can make, like Fallout New Vegas and stuff like that. It won't be there, but the decisions are in this game. And, you know, you get these kind of personality traits, but like you mentioned, the dialogue is so long, you know, so monotonous. You're kind of wondering, does my certain dialogues actually really matter? You know, the different traits that I have, does it send me in a different direction than if I chose another one? Because there's like 7 different options, and half of the time, like if I'm a scholar, I constantly give side-eye with a comment. For you, if you're a warrior, you're constantly crackling your knuckles. You're not exactly sure what this entails. So if you're looking for heavy, deep, and variety RPG elements, it's not there for you, but the combat is fun. The combat is fun, the exploration is there, and it entices you to go look for treasure, to fight these different... I love the fantasy setting, and the fantasy actually looks pretty good. I know a lot of people were hoping for a more darker game. This one's definitely more, you know, luminous. There's more light here. But, you know, I actually like the fantasy setting that they had. I like the combat that they had, enticing exploration. But if you're heavy RPG, heavy, you know, different elements, different systems, deep systems, then that's where this will fall short for you.
Yeah, and my opinion is, if you're a big RPG fan, what are you looking for a game to be a excellent RPG? Like, what's your opinion on what are the elements that need to be had to make an RPG game fun? And let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this type of content, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. You can also join up on our free Discord, and that is located in the end screen, and check out any of our new videos also posted in the end screen. Until next time, this is Marsman signing off. Game on.